So this is Interview with the Vampire from 1994, directed by Neil Jordan, starring Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Antonio Banderas, and Kirsten Dunst. IMDb plot summary: a vampire tells his epic life story: love, betrayal, loneliness, and hunger. Okay, sounds more
Okay.
like a tagline than a logline, but hey, that's cool. So I put this one on the list because so this is one of Kirsten Dunst's early roles, and she plays a character in this film who's a child who gets turned into a vampire. So she's essentially stuck as a child for her entire vampire life. And this is a movie I saw late in high school. I was a huge fan of the book. I read this book and just like, this is one of my favorite books. And this character of Claudia was my favorite character because it was really interesting having this child basically turn into a vampire. She didn't want it. She just got turned because she would have died. And then the vampire, Brad Pitt plays, feels bad for her, and she gets turned into this vampire. And how she wrestles with basically being forever seen as a child. She can't even cut her hair. Everyone's always going to look at her and think she's a child, even though she could live for decades and hundreds of years now as a vampire. She's such a fascinating character. And I think
Mhm.
Kirsten Dunst, so early in her career, being able to pull off this performance where she doesn't act like a child actor.
No.
She comes across as an adult in a child's body, which is a very hard thing to pull off. And I think she just is really a standout in this film, which again, I did not see when it first came out. But after watching it, she still was the part of the movie that stuck with me the most. Because again, she's my favorite character from the books. And even now, like actually watching this, I haven't seen this movie in maybe like 10 years. Watching it for this podcast again, she stands out in a way even more because I felt that the movie is incredibly dated in a lot of different ways, especially in the performances that Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt both give. I
Hmm.
think are very much like early 90s in a, it's a period drama, over the
Right.
top thing. I mean, they're both interesting kind of in what they're doing, especially Tom's you having a lot of fun in this role as a vampire, but it's very much early 90s, where I think Dunn's performance just seems like a really great performance that doesn't feel as dated, at least to me. So what are your thoughts on an Interview with the Vampire? Had you been interviewed before?
No, so I was a three for three. I had not
Oh
seen any of
wow.
your movies this
Oh,
time
cool. Very
for
very
some
nice.
reason. So it was a deep dive in Kirsten's filmography for
Nice.
real.
Nice.
Um, Now I agree with you. I think she is such a standout, and like you said, like playing that adult character when you are a child and not make that pretentious or like a know-it-all kind of child, which can be very annoying and
Hmm.
like a film child. This
Yes,
can easily
yes.
be that. Like this is not that. It feels like a true character, which obviously credit to her, but also to the director, because I think it's very hard to get that out of a child performer. The other thing that struck out to me with her, which I don't really think of when I think of Kirsten Dunst, is a lot of rage. Like there's
Yes.
several scenes
Yeah.
where she's like screaming at, the two adult vampires or what have you, like really asking for her own through this frustration that she has, which was really fascinating to watch because I never think of her. I think of her as a much more mellower internal character,
Mm.
and an internal actress as well. So it was kind of fun to see that oh, this is how she started. And then
Hmm.
you see that transform into kind of brightness and spunk, the two words we've been using throughout, and then it becomes mellower and mellower and sadder and sadder. So sort of an interesting
Yeah.
graph to go all the way back. Oh, this is where it started. But I
Hmm.
agree, the movie feels dated. I had seen clips of this movie. I mean, both Tom and Brad at the peak of their powers, and they'll in terms
Yes.
of at least how they look. So I was expecting like fireworks in terms of like chemistry and even sexual chemistry and what have you, but there isn't much of that, to be honest. And the movie sort of feels sort of dull in
Hmm.
many ways. So I'm glad I watched it for her, but overall as a movie, I agree. Like it doesn't really age super well, even though I love the costumes and the world building, the production design, like all of that is amazing, I think, in the
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that though overshadows a lot of the messages in the book and sort of like the point
Uh,
of the movie in terms of how this character who gets Pitt's character gets turned into a vampire. It's like, what does that mean? Who am I now? How do I fit in? What is the point of my life? How do I relate to the world as it's changing around me? And because they're sort of dialing up the melodrama and, in the early 90s, I think there was this period of time where they were taking these Merchant Ivory type sort of productions and
mhm.
trying to bring them into genre pictures and like over like dial up to 11 what Merchant Ivory were doing, which is a lot more about subtle kind of
Yep.
performances and this was a period where it was not that from the American Hollywood taking that style, and this was definitely in that, oh, we can make like a vampire movie like a Merchant Ivory film but dial it up to 11 and make the costumes too over the top and the drama over the top and the hair over the top, and it just is very, again, dated, I think is the best way to describe it. So it doesn't, and it buries, I think, why I, again, love this book. It's just such a fantastic
Mm.
book because of how it's, the dealing with what the vampire is wrestling with, what immortality means, and all the things that he's seen. And there's a lot of allegories, about, adoption and, same-sex couples and all these sort of things are wrapped in here.
Mhm.
It's really hard to kind of get at that in the way that this movie's done. So I don't think it does the book a very good service, though. It's fun to see Tom have such a good time. Like
Yeah,
he definitely carries the movie energy wise, and when he kind of disappears for a while, it
it
just the
becomes
movie
even
really
better.
grinds to a halt. Like Brad
Yeah,
Pitt seems lost in this thing, to be honest.
yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Hi there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I review a new release and then discuss 6 other movies made by that film's actor or director and how they shaped us. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.